if the Chief Justice of India is going to make the first, I mean, he's going to prepare the pool of independent people who will be part of the collegium, then give the President of India the task or the choice or the discretion of selecting, say, 3 people. So in the Supreme Court, for instance, you can say that the top 3 judges will be a part of the collegium, or the top 5 judges can be part of the collegium, and there will be independent members of the collegium who will not necessarily be judges. They may be even from civil society, eminent people who have occupied public positions in public life. The Chief Justice of India will prepare a panel of people in consultation, say, with his first 5 judges, place them before the President of India, put them out again in the public realm so people know what are the credentials of these people who are being appointed, and then have some outside input into the work of the collegium. I think that will lend a degree of public confidence in the process of the work which is carried out by the collegium.
Did you think of this when you were Chief Justice? Did you try and do something then?
You know, you must, I began by saying this, when you're within the system, you're bound by a system. You have to accept the system. When the National Judicial Appointments Commission was challenged, I was not a judge of the Supreme Court. I felt that the NJAC should have been given an opportunity to work. The Supreme Court struck down the NJAC even before it worked for a single day. Speaking for myself, it was premature. When you are within the system, you have to apply the system and try and work your way around it to the best that you can. I made the decisions of the collegium more transparent. We would circulate, the judgments, 50 judgments of all the judges who were under consideration to every member of the collegium. So we were all on the same thought page, basically. So we did a lot of change within the system to make it more objective and more transparent. But when you're within the system, you have to apply the system. You're bound by the system. Yeah. When we stand outside the system as civil society, we can think of whether there is a better system or what are the pitfalls.
But who will make these changes? You were, of course, as we all know, a very liberal Chief Justice. You're out of the system. Someone like you could be appointed to head a commission, and yet you've taken the position that you won't accept any job from the government after retirement.
I'll tell you what. That's a problem. Many of our laws today speak of a retired judge of the High Court or the Supreme Court heading a tribunal. Now, because the kind of backlash with judges who accept post-retirement jobs, the backlash, good people are just not willing to accept those assignments. Speaking for myself, I thought that 25 years of judging was long enough, and it's time to move into civil society. I'm not sure I could have, participated in a discussion like this if I was still in office. Yeah. So the joys of being a private citizen are limitless, and I've just preferred a private life.
Is it true that you turned down things like the Human Rights Commission, etc., which were offered to you? As a private citizen, you can tell me.
Well, we're not having a cup of coffee, are we? Some things are best left unsaid, but as all of you know, I'm here as a private citizen.
But isn't there a problem, Dhananjay? Because the people who can make the changes, people like yourself, say the process is tainted or whatever, or is open to suspicion, won't do it. The people who want these jobs after retirement then give judgments that are inclined to make the government think more favorably of them. So we're caught in this cycle, aren't we?
Absolutely. I mean, civil society has this perception that if you take up a job right after retirement, then maybe some of your judgments were impacted upon the desire for post-retirement office. That may not necessarily be so. One of our greatest judges, Justice Subbarao, resigned from the Supreme Court to contest the presidential election. So, it's not always so.
Which is not quite the same thing as accepting a nominated seat in the Rajya Sabha.
I completely agree. Oh, I completely agree. Yeah. I completely agree with you. Yeah. I completely agree with you. Putting your head out to contest a political office, I mean, you're a free citizen. You can certainly do that. But accepting an avowedly political nomination, say like, a Rajya Sabha seat soon after retirement, is something which I would have concerns with as well. Also, I do believe, that there has to be some degree of a cooling off period where people don't associate what you decided as a judge with, the kind of rewards you've got after you retired from office. Governorships, for instance, have been looked upon critically by civil society when retired judges do accept, a gubernatorial assignment. But ultimately, it's for everyone to himself. The Constitution does not contain any bar. So let's be very clear, the Constitution didn't create any bar. I believe it's everyone to himself. But there has to be possibly some informal parameters which judges would lay down for themselves, at least in terms of how much time you will allow to elapse. But again, there are tribunals where you have to have good retired judges assuming office. Today you have particularly in the economic regulatory area, you have some very complex tribunals, the Electricity Appellate Tribunal, the airports, you have the other tribunals, the CSTAT. And you need good judges to man those tribunals, but those are obviously not necessarily for Supreme Court judges, they are for High Court Chief Justices or High Court judges as well.
I'm going to have to throw this open, but last question. I know the kind of guy you are, you will say, no, you could have done much more. But looking back on your time as Chief Justice, what are your regrets and what are you proudest of?
Should I begin with the regrets?
Always.
Yes. Looking back, I always felt that, your time on the bench is limited. When the Constitution is telling you to go home when you turn 65. So you try and make the best. You lay down your priorities. One of my priorities was to reform the processes of the Supreme Court. My regret is that, I could have dealt with some more cases which I had listed and which I couldn't do. For instance, now I can tell you, today, 75 years after independence, marital rape is still not an offense. A husband who murders his wife is guilty of murder. A husband who grievously assaults his wife is guilty of grievous hurt and can be tried and convicted and sentenced. But a woman who is subject to non-consensual intercourse cannot complain of marital rape. I think that part of the law has to change. That case came up before me. I was left with 2 weeks before I retired. The lawyers, for one side, felt that I was rushing them and that they hadn't been given enough time to argue. I said, I don't ever want to retire with the allegation that I didn't give a fair hearing to one side. And therefore, I said, I'll pass on the baton to the others. For things which I shouldn't be talking of things, for which I'm happy about.
You can.
But
it doesn't matter.
I don't want to be...
We've given you hard enough time, you can take some credit.
I'll not take credit for the judgments which I've written. My judgments are now public property. It's for all of you to assess those judgments. But one thing which I really look back with a great deal of satisfaction is that I tried to convert the Supreme Court into a people's court. No case was too small for us, and no case was too big. We started live streaming of court proceedings. I was warned against starting live streaming. And I said, let the citizens know what happens in the courts. Let them know how important is the work of the court in the lives of the nation. Let a person, say, sitting in the corner of the Northeast or, a small district in Maharashtra or in Uttar Pradesh, know how their case is being argued by the lawyer. So live streaming took the proceedings of the court to the hearts of the people. Second, all our proceedings are in English. All the 37,000 judgments of the Supreme Court since independence are in English. That's not the language which India at large speaks. So we have used AI-assisted machine learning software to translate every one of these judgments into every language recognized by the 8th schedule of the Constitution. And I think, the Supreme Court in that sense has to reach out to the community, to become part of the life of the community. Because this is not really a Supreme Court of Delhi. It's a Supreme Court of India. And what better way than to reach out to people in their language?